on this episode of Unapologetic Uplift.
It's one thing to parent your own children that are biologically yours that came through you. It's another thing to come into a family unit that was taken apart through divorce or other circumstances. It's a massive reality slap in the face.
A lot of people have children in the hopes of the children healing them. They trigger all of the unhealed parts of you.
Fuck no. Do you see the difference? My anger would be too intense.
Fucking own your shit. If you can't handle what comes along with that, I have been so fucking far from perfect.
Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life. Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I am your host, Ianthe, Mauro, and I have my amazing, gorgeous, incredible, wise, sensitive, beautiful, amazing co-host, Kim Staple.
Oh, what an introduction. Thank you.
I've never had a chance to do an introduction, so I just went a little bit over the top, and that's okay. Unapologetically going there.
I love it.
So I'm going to start by lighting a candle as always, and I want to set an intention today that we not worry about things that are outside of our control. That the only thing that we can do, and not that we would worry about anything, but the only thing that we can do anything about is very limited to just what's within our control. And when we really get clear about what is actually within our control, as opposed to what's outside of our control, we find that there's very little we actually have to manage. So may this remind you. Amen. And can I brag for 1 second? So this was hand designed. This is a 22 karat gold original artwork by this beautiful artist that's here in Athens, Georgia. Her company is called Wormwood and Honey, and she does pottery, but she's really an artist. That's what she got her degree in, was fine art. And I did this for my client, and the company is called E.Lo. And I'm so excited about this. And it's a vessel that actually pours. So when it gets liquid, you can pour it and play with it.
Beautiful.
I love
it.
And I always get to have the preview and see it before the public. So I'm showing you all now on Unapologetic Uplift before anyone else gets it.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And moving it out of the way. Okay. Before we started recording, Kim and I, we were talking about how I'm going to be alone tonight. And my kids are grown, and so they don't live at home. And my husband has a very rare thing where he's not going to be home tonight. And Kim asked me how I felt about being alone. And here's the thing. I'm alone a lot because I'm at that stage in my life where it's just, I moved across the country. I don't live near my friends and family, and I'm alone a lot. So I've learned, and I used to be that person that I couldn't stand being alone. I actually slept in my parents' bed. I would go and get in their bed, even into my late teen years. I don't like being alone. I always wanted people to be over at the house. I was just used to, in fact, I could fall asleep better when I heard other people talking in another room. I felt that meant that I'm not alone, and I can now go to sleep knowing that someone else has got. There's this hypervigilance that I have, that when I know someone else that I trust, not just anybody, not just voices, not voices from a TV, but someone that I trust is there and still awake, I can then fall asleep because it's like they're on watch. So this goes deep for me. But I will say I got really comfortable, and not only comfortable, I started to seek out alone time and realize that my own company was worth being in. And that was a big lesson for me that I probably didn't get till my 40s. And for context, I'm 54 right now. So it's been over 10 years. But before that, I didn't think it was good to be alone. I didn't understand it. I thought, why do people say they need alone time? I don't get it. Well, I do now. But here's where it flips. Because of moving across the country, because I don't have my friends and family nearby, because really the only connection I get is virtual right now, at least on a regular basis, I don't want to be alone as much. So when I find out that I'm going to be alone and you ask me, Kim, like, how does it feel today? I'm not excited about it. I'm fine with it, but it's not that feeling of, yay, I get to be alone. And so I think what's fun is you and I can now talk about this because we're at very different stages in this. And I think that you probably would welcome switching places with me right now. This is erratic and I want right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can relate to all of it because for the first big chunk of my life, I also didn't like being alone. And I would always try and fill my time and be surrounded by people. I think for me, a big part of it was just being dysregulated and not being comfortable to sit with myself and then have to face all the things that I was avoiding. But once I learned how to regulate myself and started doing healing, I recognized how much I do love to sit with myself and to be alone. Not that I feel the need to get rid of the kid. Every once in a while. No, I do love being with them, but I love being by myself too. So I can relate to some level, but I do get really excited when I know that I'm going to have an afternoon to myself or a day to myself. Doesn't happen very often. So it is something that I look forward to. With that said, the thought of my children not being at home for extended periods of time is just like, I can't even wrap my head around that. I want them close. And they're much younger than your children. I do have children that have grown up and moved out of the house, but they're still close by too. So I often wonder because I do want to go nomad for a while. And I'm like, oh, what's it going to be like to be away from my adult children because they won't be coming with me. The little ones will come. I think I'll be able to relate a little more once we start doing that.
I think it's really good for them. What just hit me was it may be hard for you and for us. And I want to say I went 6 months without seeing my kids this last year. I didn't see them between June when my son graduated from college and with his MBA, actually was the second college graduation, and seeing them for the holidays. And that was a massive amount of time. And I remember looking at the calendar going, just 3 more months, just 1 more month, just one more, and I kept seeing that and having that as the goal is I get to hug them. And we had the most incredible time together. What I've learned is in just response to what you said about you wonder how you're going to feel being away if you do nomad life. I should say when you do, I think you're doing it, that what that will be like for you. But what's wild is what came to me very clearly, I could just see it, was how good it's going to be for your grown children to realize, and we know this, right? What they realize, the gift that we give them in allowing them to do it themselves and figure some stuff out themselves and not always be that safety net.
Yeah.
Is that they learn unbelievable resiliency. And then what we also know from both of us doing all the work that we've done in our lives, Kim, is that if you don't give people an opportunity to fall and get back up on their own, they don't learn resiliency and their self-esteem gets lower and lower. And we can talk about not within our control. We can't always control how we can help them or save them. That's not within our control. We can have the intention to want to, but it's not within our control. So what's beautiful about giving some space physically and geographically from your grown children is they're going to figure it out. And then they're going to feel good about themselves after.
Yeah, I agree. It is a great opportunity to build that resiliency and self-trust and self-confidence, all of those beautiful things.
Yeah. And parenting is, wow, we've talked about, okay, we have to do an episode on what it's like to be a step parent, and then we never do it. It's not fun necessarily to talk about. And I think that there are some unpopular opinions around it that we might have and we might share or we might disagree on. But I want to segue into that because it's on my mind. It's one thing to parent your own children. that are biologically yours that came through you. It's another thing to come into a family unit that was taken apart through divorce or other circumstances and then step in that parent role. And oh my gosh, not for the faint of heart, not for someone who has giant expectations around what that's supposed to look like, because it's a massive reality slap in the face what the truth of what that is, and opposed to what we think it might be. And of course, you've got the fairy tales making it worse because you always have what? The evil stepmother. So what's that about? Hello? Are we? What happened? Why? What is that?
It is so complex. We are both step parents. And I know, they say that a lot of people have children in the hopes of the children healing them. What actually happens when you have children is they mirror everything and they bring up all of the areas that need to be healed, and they trigger all of the unhealed parts of you. And you think that's intense with your own biological children, it's even more intense with your stepchildren. It was for me. When Adam and I got together, I had my 3 boys and he had 1 girl. So I was a boy mom. I always wanted a girl. When we got into that relationship, parenting, becoming a parent, an overnight parent to a girl was very, very triggering for me. There were so many challenges. It brought up so much in me. For me specifically, I had a lot of unhealed, unprocessed childhood trauma. And I had this trauma around my father's suicide. He committed suicide when I was 5. And as a child, I internalized that as me not being enough for my father to live. I believed that if my father loved me more, if I was enough for him, he wouldn't have done that and would have survived. This is all on a subconscious level. It wasn't something that I was aware of. But then seeing Adam, who was such a great father and so loving with his daughter, really did bring up a lot for me. And the relationship between his daughter and I was very, very challenging in the beginning. I had to do a lot of work. But, thank you. I can thank her for that.
Oh, that is beautiful. I am always amazed when I hear your story, your origin story, and that unbelievable trauma. I'm always just, it's like a gut punch of just like a spiritual moment of catching my breath for you. I always have to say, it's just incredible what you have lived through. And again, in what's within our control, what's outside of our control, very little within our control. So I love that you brought this up, and I'm a step parent, and I learned I want to give credit. I always love giving credit, but I don't remember who said it. I like to call myself a bonus parent or a bonus mom instead of stepmom. And I remember at one point I said and I have a stepson and stepdaughter, bonus son, bonus daughter. And I remember at one point saying, "What do you want to call me?" I didn't want them to feel obligated to call me anything. I didn't want them to think, "Oh, now you married my dad, I have to call you mom." They already have a mom. And so I was very clear on that I didn't need a title. But it was really cute because my bonus daughter said, and at the time, I think she was probably 11, and she said, "You're really magical. I'm going to call you Magic Mom." And I was so touched by that. That was so sweet. And that was a little moment of beauty. And then there were many moments, and have been many moments of really, I fucked up. I did, because I had so much anger at their mom for the way she had treated my now husband, right? And I really knew better to not bring that to them. And I knew all the things intellectually, like I knew it was not my place to point out anything bad about their mom. And so maybe I didn't say it with words, but I'm telling you, energetically, I was constantly doing it. It's like the bubble over my head was always saying, "Ew, your mom's treating you like your mom's doing that. That's the decision your mom's making." I was so judgmental, and I want to apologize openly if they're ever listening to this episode. I'm very sorry for being so judgmental. That was my fucking work. Should not have brought it to you. And I really apologize to my bonus children. It was not okay. And so there was one point though when I thought, I have to heal this. We're working together raising children. I have to work somehow with my husband's ex-wife, the mother of these children who are now in my life a lot, forever, hopefully, right? So I want to work with her. And I remember writing this really long email to her. And I'm looking back going, wow, it's so awful what I said. I said, so mad that she didn't receive it well. But here's what I said. I said, I'm bored with us being at odds. It's boring for us to fight, boring for us to not get along. The kids deserve better. I just minimized it because for me I was able to do that, which was very audacious because she wasn't wanting to do that. And she doesn't want a relationship. She didn't want to work with me. That's not her choice. I wanted to force that to happen because I knew better. Because I said, well, we have to all work together for the sake of the kids. She didn't want that. I assumed that that's what she would want because that's what we're told we're supposed to do. She didn't want that. She still doesn't. What's interesting now is we're at the point where this won't surprise you probably, but it surprised me for a while and I finally accepted it. She has told her children, my bonus children, that they're not to mention my name. They're not to allow them. I'm not allowed, or my husband, we're not allowed around if she's visiting. If they take a phone call and she's there, they have to go in another room or not take the call. She doesn't want us to exist. And she's made this very clear. I used to have a lot of feelings around it, but you can see as I'm saying it now, like I'll do a body scan. I'm fine. Because what I've learned at this stage is I need to allow her the safety of whatever that is for her. It feels safer in her body right now at this time for her to keep us over there, to not have us enter her field at all for whatever reason. And I don't want to judge it anymore. And I don't want to be mad at her anymore. I have to let that go because it doesn't help me. And there's nothing, again, it's outside of my control. So what am I going to do? Force her? Like, no, we're coming around. Now, what I will say, and this is a boundary I want everyone to notice, there's a difference. There's a nuance here. Do I respect her for having her own opinion? Yes. Do I respect a ridiculous boundary that would keep us away from seeing my bonus children and potentially our grandchildren if she happens to be around? Fuck no. Do you see the difference? So the nuance is I'm not going to go in and make a scene and, well, I don't care if she's around. I'm going anyway. But if I happen to need to see them for some reason, or it overlaps and I didn't realize she was there, I'm not going to go hide in my car or quickly turn away out of the driveway when I see her car. That is ridiculous. And that is not okay. And that would be, in my opinion, enabling some very dysfunctional behavior and also not showing and modeling something empowering to my bonus children. So there you go. Unapologetic. Your turn. This stuff is intense.
Yeah, so much there. But I think that the way that you're handling it is healthy and no doubt has taken a long time to get to that point. That's pretty intense to be telling them to pretend you don't exist. I hope she wasn't doing that to them when they were children.
And probably not in those words. And I think that my bonus children would say, well, she never said that. I've heard them say words about why. But anyway, it doesn't matter what the words are. That is the energy 100%, whatever words she used. But it's we're not allowed in the same presence. So I just wanted to make that clear, just so that I'm not held to those exact words coming out of her mouth. But that is the intention. And that's what's been happening for years. And you mentioned years. So just I should let everyone know the timing of this so you understand the timeline. I met my bonus children when they were 9 and 13, and they're 27 and 30 right now.
Yeah. And 9 and 13 is a really, really difficult time for kids to be going through a transition like that. Sending them lots of love and healing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, the relationship with my bonus daughter's mom has been really challenging too. we do both try our best to be supportive and get along. But it has been a strenuous, very difficult relationship. And there's been a lot of judgment on my part as well. And I try not to. I try at this point to just empathize with her situation. It's still challenging though. I do catch myself judging her a lot and getting angry, but it really doesn't serve anybody to allow it to do that to us. The best thing that we can do always 100% of the time is try to understand and empathize. But it isn't easy. There's nothing easy about it. And when there are hard feelings on the other side as well, and you feel like you're being judged and hated and all of that, it adds another layer that makes it even more challenging to empathize and try to understand, because at times it's like, I don't want to. I just don't want to. And I've gone through periods where I haven't wanted to and I haven't. It's so challenging.
But just giving you grace for empathy fatigue, because when we're empaths, we're empathetic, and anyone listening, if you have a lot of empathy, please give yourself grace to have empathy fatigue, because meaning you can consciously turn it off for a minute and give yourself a break and say, if I'm having judgmental thoughts about this person and I'm not stepping into and putting on my empathy, energetic attire, and I'm wearing something judgmental, I'm going to forgive myself, because I'm a human being and it takes so much. It's the sensitivity, being always empathetic and always seeing the other side and stepping into walking in their moccasins. Many ways we can put this, right? Is exhausting. And you also get to be a judgmental, angry human. You don't always have to be. And I say this to myself, I need to hear it more than anything, because I still set standards for myself that I am failing if I let myself be anything other than understanding of others.
Yeah, it's important to show yourself grace in that area and be kind. In order for us to be able to be empathetic and kind to others, we have to show ourselves that first.
And I'm so good at it with other people, because I can see when someone gets really mad at somebody for doing something, I'll listen and I'll recognize why that's appropriate and understand, especially as women, that having anger come out is very important, because otherwise, where does it go? And how do we let anger come out? And there's a whole episode there, because anger is something that I had an acting coach in the early 90s, probably 91, very early 90s. And I remember she would videotape our session. She was really well known in the industry, and she wanted me to be a star. And I loved that she wanted me to be a star, because I wanted to be a star and I loved it. And so I was doing this intense work with her. And there was a scene where my character would have been really angry, and she was video recording it. And so we did the scene, and she stopped and she made me watch it back. And she said, Ianthe, where are you? And I started crying, because I realized when I watched it that I was flatlined. I had no anger. And this was a scene where you would have had a lot of anger. And then she started to work with me on why, and where was my anger? Why was I so out of touch with it? And I got to a place, and those of you that have done acting and had acting coaches and you've been an actor, it's just like deep psychology and shadow work all the freaking time in your face. It was deep stuff. So I'm crying and I'm going, and I'm not even telling you that this is even good that this happens, but this is what occurs often with acting coaches. And I'm crying. I said, I'm not allowed to be angry, because it will hurt other people, is what I got to. That my anger would be too intense. And what people wanted was for me to be someone they could count on to be always comfortable and comforting and light and bright around them. And if I showed real anger, it would hurt them. And then I even got more specific that it would actually hurt my mom and dad, who needed me to be the light in the house. And these are unspoken contracts that we make with family and with people that we're close to, isn't it? Because it wasn't something I consciously did. My parents would never have said that to me. They wouldn't say, Ianthe, suppress your anger and only be cute.
Right.
But that's what I was getting in the subconscious air that was swirling in my home was I'm the one that has to always be okay and not show anger and rage. So I got to that and it was very healing. And so that was the early 90s. But it was just the first crack. So what my point is in saying all that is I give everybody around me when they're angry and they're yelling about somebody, they feel safe to come to me and tell me because I'm not going to judge them for it. I always love people through that. I love people through their imperfections. I love when people let me throw the lasso of truth of Wonder Woman's lasso of truth around them and they spill because I'm going to hold on to it with great reverence and always love them through it. This is one of my superpowers, but I haven't always done that for myself.
Yeah, and it goes back to the whole people-pleasing codependency thing too, right? Having to show up a certain way for other people and hold it all together. I know with myself, I have been very angry over the years, and kind of the opposite in my past was not being able to control that anger and just lashing out, which isn't great either. But I think I would maybe rather do that than hold it all in. Holding it all in.
It caused thyroid disease for me. It caused the physical lump in my throat and Graves' disease. I'm telling you now. And I don't care if anybody here says that's woo-woo. I have it.
And no,
my
I mean,
body.
it's scientifically proven, but
That's right. Yeah. My body said, you can't keep suppressing this. It's going to come out one way or another. It's going to mess up your hormones and
a lot of things, a lot of other emotions, which is why I was so angry. But I let the anger out. For some reason, it felt okay to do that, or it was just a complete loss of control, really. I've had all kinds of other issues as well, just from suppressing all of the other traumas. But to rage, for some reason, was okay for me.
So circling back to, we've touched on a few things. They're very important things. And the step parenting, the bonus parenting, I would love to, since we brought that up and you and I have a lot of experience with it, many years of experience with it, and it's ongoing and fresh for us. Is there some advice that you could give if there's someone listening right now and they're taking on being a bonus parent? Is there any advice that you would give to them?
Don't be a fucking control freak like I was. You know, there's this parenting philosophy called Nacho parent. And I often reflecting back and like, oh, maybe this is something that Adam and I should have tried. We didn't at the time. I was very insistent on us parenting each other's children and doing everything the same way with all of the kids to be consistent across the board. And I would tell him how he had to discipline his daughter. And it was like, you can't do this for one and not the other. And it was just like almost like a constant comparison, tit for tat, keeping score. Really fucking toxic. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just try the Nacho parent approach, which is the Nacho parent is Nacho kid. Nacho parent, right? Like, those are your kids. These are my kids. Do what you will with yours, and I will do what I will with mine. And we still don't take this approach. I'm still very involved, but it's a much healthier dynamic. And I often think, oh gosh, things would have just been so much easier had we taken that approach. I have taken on my bonus daughter as one of my kids, and I do treat her as one of my children. And now we have a great relationship. I've had to do lots of work. But I really look at that parenting approach, and I think that it's so much healthier for so many people. It's great when you do want to step in and be the other parent, but sometimes it's just so unhealthy and it's damaging for the children. So just don't butt in and don't overstep and just as hard as it is, work on yourself. Look within.
That is such awesome advice. And I don't think it's very popular.
It's not, because we're all
No.
control freaks and people don't want to take radical self-responsibility. So they're not willing to look at themselves and say, what I'm doing is wrong. It's a really hard thing to do. And there are so many feelings that come up. Most people would never admit this, but I had tons of jealousy around the relationship between my stepdaughter and my husband because of all of that core trauma I had around my own father. And then also my ex-husband in the relationship he had with my children, how he wasn't the type of father that they needed. So it was really complex. And you have to be able to face these things if you're going to be a step parent and you want to do the best for the children. Most people won't look at this. They'll brush it under the carpet and these emotions will fester and create us to act out in all kinds of toxic ways. And at the end of the day, it's just harming the children. So fucking own your shit and don't be a step parent if you can't handle what comes along with that. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect, because I have been so fucking far from perfect, but you have to be willing to get uncomfortable and take radical self-responsibility, just like you would for your own children.
And I'm so grateful that you unapologetically brought up being jealous of the step kids, bonus kids, because I know that is very common and hard for people to admit because it's yucky. It's gross. Like what? I'm jealous of the children from the previous relationship of my love partner. I don't, and we judge it. So we're not letting it. And it's so common. And the advice that I'm going to give, I loved your advice. So when I first married my second husband, which sounds so weird, I never believed in divorce. I always thought I'm a forever person. I marry and I mean it, and that's it. And that's for me, that's what works, is being in one relationship forever, because I learned so much about myself and I can work it out. And then I got divorced. So it was a weird slap in the face of the things that I had tried really hard to control and make work that didn't. And I knew that I was going to be a step parent or a bonus parent to these two kids. But I also knew with my two children, now what would his role be? And I remember the conversation we had, and he said, and I had friends who were very, very, this was for them a massive red flag, and they were mad at me for even continuing to be in a relationship with my now husband for this. But here's what he said. I'm not going to be a stepdad. I'm not their dad. They have a dad, and I'm not interested in trying to become something that I'm not. I'll support you. You're their mom, period. And he said it was kind of like that. And so that's the Nacho parent. But at the time, it was so, to me, I just assumed, and I hadn't come from divorce. My parents never divorced. I wasn't used to what that would look like. I'd never been having a step parent, or I just didn't have that experience. Nor, by the way, does my husband. My ex-husband did. So he had a lot of ideas around this, but I didn't. I really didn't know. And I thought, but if you're my husband and you're the love of my life and we're going to spend the rest of our lives together, you are parenting my kids. You're with me. We're a unit. We're a family unit, right? And he said, absolutely no. No, that's not what it is. Your family unit is destroyed through divorce. I am your husband, but I am not their father. Oh my God. So it was a big turning point for me. It was a huge reality check. Because it should have been, society told me, a lot of my friends told me that should have been a red flag and I should have run for the hills. No, it wasn't. It was true. And what I love about my husband is he always tells the truth. Even if it hurts me, even if it stings and it's yucky and I don't agree with it, he's not going to lie to me. He's going to tell me the truth.
1,000%.
And they don't call him dad, guys. They don't.
It just goes to show you how misconstrued all of this shit is, and how most people just want things to look a certain way. And it's like, No, a red flag would be if he pretended to be perfect and was, love bombing you and telling you what you want to hear. The fact that he was straight up with you and you could have decided no at that point, and he was giving you that opportunity, is I will take that over somebody just telling you what you want to hear and then them resenting your children, treating your children like shit because they can't handle it. Yeah, they had a father, they have a father, and they don't need me. And, I'm just going to be their friend. And that's okay. That's healthy and so much better than somebody just doing it for you because they think that's what you want and that they have to do it to be with you, Yeah,
There's so many myths around this, and there's so much to this and divorce and how we are in relationship. And I have so many things swirling in my head right now. But going back to the advice I want to give to anyone who's going to step into being a bonus parent or a step parent is to be real. Like what you just said, what you pointed out about what my husband did for me. Please be real. Even if you think it's not nice. And I don't mean because it's real doesn't have to be nice. It just has to be true. And we feel it when it's true. And we feel respected when you tell us the truth. We all do. So your children and your bonus children will also feel respected. For instance, if I could go back in time, instead of having this passive aggressive bubble over my head of being disgusted by their mother and not really telling them, but telling them with my eyes, I think it would have been really nice if I could have just said, I wish it were easier for your mom and I to get along. It's not my choice to not get along, but I also have to respect where everybody is right now. So I'm just going to, when we're together, I'm just going to do my best to be supportive of you, love your dad, and love myself. It's all I can do.
Yeah.
I wish I would have said that. So I think I learned this from a friend of mine her name is Annette, and I'm just going to say her name out loud, right? Annette Papet, Papet. I don't know if she's still practicing, but she's an incredible Jungian psychologist. She helped me during my divorce a lot. She gave me some emergency sessions, but she's also a very dear friend. And I've known her since just after I had my first child in around 2000. And I remember her saying, Ianthe, notice that there's always a bubble over someone's head or your head. If you feel it, that bubble over their head, that thing that they're not saying, that's the loud conversation right now in the room. And if you can figure out what that is and stop yourself and them from just doing this fake conversation, it's going to get you faster to where you want to be. And when she said it, I realized I do see that. I can see bubbles over people's heads. And when I call it out, it may not make me popular and it may scare people and people may not like it, but I don't care because I'm very interested in the truth. I'm very interested in truthful communication, even if it's uncomfortable. I'm not afraid of confrontation, and people will mix this up because I don't do, rage and anger and all that doesn't mean that I don't do confrontation. I'm totally fine with confrontation. I will call things out, not because I want to make a point, but because if I see it in the room, if it's in the air, if it's a bubble over your head and I don't say it, how is that helping us? And if you're worth it to me, I'm going to say it. And if you're not worth it to me, I might choose not to, but it doesn't mean I don't feel it and see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always appreciate people that will call me out, and I don't hesitate to do it either. Not again to be necessarily confrontational, but to problem solve, right? Like that's what the motivation behind it is.
Yeah.
And if we don't, it just gets bigger.
Isn't it also so freeing to say, I'm not doing this well. I know I'm messing up and I'm working on it. Like we could even say that to our bonus children, to our own children, owning the fact that we don't know.
Yeah,
Just that.
totally.
Simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when we do know better, we do better. It's just,
Yeah.
parenting doesn't come with a manual, and step parenting doesn't either.
No. And there's another thing I'm going to say that could be construed as very controversial, but I have witnessed, and it could just be who I'm around, But I have witnessed that no matter how hard we want to, there's a different feeling with biological children and children that come from others. And I say this full well knowing that it's shitty of me to say, and some people are going to slap me in the face right now energetically for saying it. I have friends and family who have adopted babies from birth, and they want with all their heart and all of their actions for that child to be exactly the same as if biologically it came from them. I'm sorry, but there is something to nature, nurture are different things. And there is something to that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that I have felt it. And I've also witnessed people where that exists, where I see the way that my husband, for instance, responds to his biological child is not the same as the way he responds to mine, even if he would want to.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's true to say it's exactly the same. So what does that mean? We have to work a little harder for the children that don't come through us biologically, for it to be fair for them. But what is even fair? What does that even mean? Let's just show up and be the absolute best we can for every innocent being that comes across our path. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes,
but let's
please.
but let's not pretend that it's just the same. It's not the same. And so there needs to be, I just want real reality. I'm just tired of narratives and stories around everything.
Yeah. And of course, I can't really comment on the whole adoption thing because I've never adopted a child. When I put myself in that situation, I'm like, if I got a baby from somebody else and it wasn't biologically mine, I think I could love it the same as much as I love my own.
Me too.
But stepchildren, we inherit when they've already been parented, often in very different ways than we parent, right? And often we have a lot of feelings towards that other there's just so much. It is different. And I mean, I love my bonus daughter so much, and I do love her as if she were my own, but it is different than my own daughter. Like, it's a different the relationship is just different. It's not the exact same. And I respect that she has a mother, and I'm not trying to take that place. I am just the bonus mom.
Huge. And I want to say too, it's not that I mean we can't love them as much, but we do that consciously. But there's some unconscious something with our biological children that we can't even describe. Certain things that just occur that it doesn't mean that we're not loving the children that don't come through us biologically in this as much as we are consciously doing it the same. And I agree with you. By actually adopting any child at any age, I would completely love them the same. But it wouldn't be the same because there's something. And I know that scientifically there have been a lot of studies around something like mirror neurons, they're called, where when you're biologically related to someone, there's certain things you learn subconsciously that aren't spoken.
Right.
Right? Because you share DNA. And that's the thing I'm talking about. So it's not things that we consciously, of course, consciously, we're going to love all the children. But there is something unconscious or subconscious that I don't think that we can disregard. And to forgive ourselves for that, sometimes making it feel like, wow, it's not fair. But what is fair? And by the way, we could do a whole episode on the word fair, because I don't know that fair is the goal. For me, fair isn't the goal, because if fair was the goal, it would discount a lot of things and suffering and stuff that we cannot take away from people having experiences of, or there wouldn't be the resiliency I was talking about from the beginning, right?
Yeah, life isn't fair.
It just isn't.
Yeah, and that was something I was actually stuck on as a parent for a long time with my older children, trying to make sure everything was fair amongst them. If I do this for this one, I have to do the exact same thing for the other one. And again, it was that keeping score, because that's how I was raised. My mom wanted everything to be fair between my brother and I. But in many ways, we're doing children a disservice by doing that, because then there's this expectation that everything in life is going to be fair. And it just simply never will be.
And then I think that they're responding to, there's this reaction of always looking to see where there's something unfair because you set up this criteria that it has to be fair and we know it's not. So they're always looking and they're going to find it. They're going to find all the things that are unfair because that's the truth. And a very quick little example of this would just be bedtimes. So if you have children at different ages, if you don't have twins or multiples, then you're going to experience that they're very different brains and body development. So for instance, I have a son and a daughter that are just under 3 years apart. It is very different for them. For my son's body and brain, he had a very different way of needing to go to sleep at a certain time than my daughter, who was 3 years younger. And so they had different bedtimes. I didn't have a thing where it was like all kids lights out at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. It was dependent on, I'm paying attention to their particular needs. So that could have been viewed as, that's so unfair, Mom. Why does he get to stay up later than me? It's what works for his brain and body. And I'm paying attention to who you actually are rather than some fake fairness rule.
Yeah, totally. My kids are 18 months apart and they do have the same bedtime, but that just works for them. But yeah, absolutely. When there's more of an age gap or even when there's less of an age gap, it just kind of depends on the kids, which just works for us. So yeah, I can totally see that. And I remember as a child, I did have a different bedtime than my brother, who is 5 years older than me. I can remember as a kid be like,
it makes so much sense. Oh, that's so good. Well, we went pretty deep today and it went by really.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Is there anything else that we need to check in about? I mean, I just want this podcast, this Unapologetic Uplift. I just want this to be the place where everybody feels, whoever comes here, whoever's listening, feels safe to be wherever you're at with whatever you're struggling with. Either we've been there or we have huge compassion for where you are. And I hope that this isn't about us trying to position ourselves like we know it all. And for the unapologetic part to always be there, which is for us to just be real about the fact that we're also learning on the go as we grow, as we age, and as we fall into deeper understanding of who we are and what the world is. It's all a lot. It's a lot. And I love you, Kim. It's so nice to I always look forward to our conversations.
Oh, me too. I love you too. Yeah, I think that we covered a lot. I feel like we can leave it there. And I too just want people to feel like this is a safe space and encouraging space. Just know that we aren't judging you. You do enough judging of yourself, I'm sure. You don't need anybody else to do it for you.
I want to mention something really cool too, and hopefully this is encouraging to everyone, that you don't have to wait to cross off a bunch of T's and dot a bunch of I's and be at a certain place with a certain following and follower count in order to, or a certain level of what looks like a perceived success, in order for you to have really beautiful conversations with people that you admire. Don't wait. So for instance, all of our guests that we have on the show, they're always people that I admire. And some of them have huge followings and are very, very popular in their spaces with what they do and are very sought after. And some are people that you've never heard of before that I hope that you're delighted to get to introduce, to be meeting through us. And it brings me to our guest that is coming up. I was on Instagram, and when you find that one account where everything that you start scrolling, you're like watching video after video because they're making you laugh. And it feels like this is exactly the elixir I needed for my soul, because I really, really needed to be uplifted unapologetically. Now, she has a huge following and she's followed by some people who I really admire, like this famous comedian, Maria Bamford, who I love. She follows this creator. I don't know this creator. And I reached out. I just sent a DM saying, I would love to have you. You are literally the embodiment of unapologetic uplift. And I have this podcast with Kim Staples. Do you know what she didn't do? She didn't even hesitate. She said yes with exclamation points, and you will be seeing her on the show. And what I love is she didn't look at our metrics. She didn't ask for my resume. She didn't look to see how many followers we have. A very tiny following right now. It doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a tiny following. Everyone who's meant to hear this hears this. And these, by the way, They live online on the internet forever. So I never know where my voice is reaching. And I just want to always show up unapologetically with you, Kim, and bring these amazing people. But I said that to encourage you. If there's someone you admire right now and you've been holding back from asking them to be in communication with you or to invite them to do something, why?
Yeah. Such a good point. And, yeah, you get to pick and choose who your friends are. And there's nobody that is out of your league, despite what you tell yourself. This is something that I have learned over the past several years too, in building the network that I currently have in my inner circle of friends who I am so grateful for. And I often have to pinch myself because I'm like, how do I have such amazing friends? And there was a time, I've said this before on the podcast, that I thought that like having friends like you and my dear friend Angel, other people, I just thought, why would they want to be friends with me? Who am I to have friends like that? But you really just have to put yourself out there and you're amazing and just show them that and they will love you.
Yeah, so maybe the challenge out of this, I don't usually give a challenge, but I would say maybe make a list for yourself if you're listening right now. Who are 5 people that you would love to have in your circle of trust, your circle that you check in with, your circle that knows you? And let that list be as big, think the people that really have touched your heart in some way that you don't know. You'd be surprised how good it's going to feel if you reach out to them genuinely to say something that they did that touched you. You have no idea how that will impact them.
Totally. Yeah. And I think you mentioned this before, how like you'll send a DM to somebody to tell them how their content or something that they shared impacted you. And we think, oh, this person's famous. They're not going to respond to me. But a lot of times they do. And if they don't, no skin off your back.
And you know what I'm going to
It's
tell
not
you?
hurting you.
I'd say 90% of the time, the people that I do message do respond. And sometimes I'll do it as a comment on a video. And it's not a private DM because that might feel a little bit invasive sometimes, or maybe they don't even, you have to not assume, but I know for a fact that a lot of people who have huge following don't even have their own, they have somebody watching their DMs. They don't actually do it themselves.
Yeah.
So there's a gatekeeper. So it's fine though to tag people that you admire and just make a comment publicly, even if you feel like the DM and DM too. Why not? It can't
I can tell you, I get unsolicited DMs from time to time from followers that I don't know. And they tell me that something I shared inspired them, or maybe they comment on my stories, which goes to your DM. And I do monitor my own social media, and
Me too.
it is absolutely flattering and feels so good. And my reaction is always so much love and thank you. And so kind of you to say. And sometimes relationships do spark from that.
I have one of my closest friends. We met in a social audio room, and we ended up DMing each other and then have been talking ever since for 5 years.
We met
Oh.
on social media.
You and I, same story. And so it's back to don't be afraid to show people what you love about them and to share goodness, because there's enough in the world where the default is to share when you're disgruntled about something. So don't hold back when you have something beautiful to say. That's all I want to end with.
Yeah, it doesn't upset people.
No. And Kim and I love it too. If you want to say something nice to us,
We'll say something nice
we're
back.
here. We're here for it. We're here for the real, if it's real.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think with that said, if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a 5-star review and share us with a friend. And make sure to join us next week when we have this special guest that Ianthe was just talking about. Her name is
Anna Herzy, and I don't know if I pronounced the last name correctly, but it's PRZY.
All right. Well, she can correct us if so next week.
Yes.
Until then, have a wonderful week, everyone. We love you. Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us, and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose, Eco Luxury Candles, and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present, and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Ianthe Mauro, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Ianthe's candles are truly special, clean, safe, even for the body as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit ianthemauro.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.